Hi there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Solar City Garage. Today we are going to be assembling our Model T oil pan after we had it all painted and slicked up. So we're going to be putting the bottom gasket in on the bottom cover. Of course, there's the cover, the gasket, and then these kind of U-shaped pieces that the threads are in. Pan reinforcements kinda, but this is what the bolts start into. This is a lot easier to do with this off the car. Because setting up like this, I can reach underneath and hold those up while I start the bolts. Then we're going to tighten them down. This is what the back one looks like. If you look and see, they are the same side, both sides, but yet you can tell which one was towards the pan. And I think that's the best way to put it together because of the threads. All right, we will be using a gasket that we got from our friends at Langs. Not a sponsor, just a very good seller of Model T stuff. We're also going to be using, where am I at? The Right Stuff by Permatex. This is the 5-ounce caulking gun tubes with the little short caulking gun. Some people either love this stuff or hate it. I'm going to tell you, our normal business is doing everyday automotive repair, and we have used this stuff, I would say, for at least 15 years. We really like it, have had 0 failures, knock on wood. In this application, it doesn't matter that you can use it right away, but you can. Some people said, oh my gosh, it dries too fast. No, it doesn't. It's made differently so that it doesn't have to cure before coming in contact with fluids. So like, a big thing we use it for is rear differential covers, because before you used to put the sealer on, then had to let it dry before you filled it with gear oil, which costs time, and time is money. To be honest, I think the reason most people don't like this stuff is because it's expensive. And let's face it, most of us Model T guys are a little on the frugal side. And when you talk to one long enough that says he doesn't like it, usually they'll finally admit cost. But you use whatever you want. This or the Ultra Black or the Mopar Black work well as 2, but don't be using the red or the blue. They tend to get kind of gelatinous on the inside and can break off and stuff like that. So anyway, enough about that. They're not a sponsor either. I just really believe in this product. So, all right, let's go. We're going to put a small thin bead around here because in these areas I like to use this on both sides of the gaskets because it's always in oil. The rest of the gaskets on the engine, we didn't do that because it's not necessary. But here, because of the little imperfections and the style of gasket and that, I just like to coat both sides, put it together, then we're done. All right, let's get started. All right, when you're done with this product, I always take and wipe the tip off, and then you just squeeze. Where can we do this? Squeeze out a little bit like that, shut the pressure off, and lay it like that. That will cause the end of that to dry, and it self-seals, makes its own little cap, and it cures in about 1/4 of an inch. When your next time you want to use it, you grab that, pull it out, and you're good to go. I didn't believe that when the product first came out. My salesman, at that time was from O'Reilly's, said, "You ever have a tube of that go bad, I'll replace it for free." And that was 15 years ago, and he's never had to replace a tube. So, what do you know? Okay folks, as you see we've got all the fasteners started. Can be a little bit of a pain getting everything lined up. Phillips screwdriver really helps a lot. And you can see by inserting the hole how much sealant is on there. That's why I didn't put anything on the bolts, because as you put the bolt in and turn it, you're getting a coating on the threads, and that'll push right down in there, so no reason to overdo it. You notice when I put the beads on, they weren't super thick. Okay, I just went right along towards the inside edges of the bolt holes, come back, went around each hole, and that should be good enough. So we're going to start by snugging these down. Start on that side, come over here, start on that side, and just work your way kind of a crisscross pattern. Now you notice I'm using a 1/4 inch drive, long handled ratchet. These don't need to be super tight here, folks. Alright folks, there you have it. We had just a little bit squeeze out, which is great. We had a little bit come around the head of each bolt, which is great. You can go around and clean that up if you want to. Take off some of the excess. I only like to do that where it gets real wide. The rest of it will dry, and it just looks natural, and it saves a lot of work. Otherwise, you're going to smear it all over. All right, so there we have it. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to flip the pan over, put in the crankshaft seal, and then we're going to do a few things to the motor, and we're going to test fit the gasket on the motor. There's a little trimming that usually has to be done, so let's meet you back at the motor. Hi there folks, and we're back still on the pan here. We got the bottom cover all on. We had a nice bead of sealant come around the inside. We're going to put the crankshaft seal in, and just like on the other half of the engine, we're going to work it into some grease here. Not a lot, just I suppose less than a tablespoon. Just want to saturate it up with some grease and then work it down into the groove. You want to make sure it doesn't try to roll over. Work it down in with your thumb, and we should be pretty good to go. It's okay if it sticks a little proud out of here. I just try to get everything tucked down in the groove. All right, there's that. All right, we'll go over to the motor. Bye. Okay folks, here we are back at the motor, and what we're doing is we're test fitting our gaskets. These happen to be two different halves of gaskets that came at two different times because they were out of one side. But where you have to look is where the gasket meets the crankshaft. Sometimes they're a little too long. When you line up the bolt holes, you don't want it tipping up on the crank. Let me move you around so you can kind of see what I mean here. Sorry for the shakiness. So here's where we're at. Here's the crank. And as you can see, when the bolt holes are lined up, see how the gasket curls up? What we're going to do is take the scissors and we're going to trim off some, because we don't want that getting in the way. It does take, let's get it off the motor. There we go. So we trimmed off probably 1/8 of an inch. Now there the gasket lays nice and flat. The one on the other side needs just a tickle. Make sure we don't get that inside. There, now those lay down nice and flat. The other thing I like to do is on this part of the gasket, right down here is your crank seal. I don't like all the gasket being between the two halves of the crank seal. I would like them to mate together. So what we're going to do trim. You gotta be careful. Sometimes you get a little carried away with the scissors, and you're either gonna lose your finger or destroy the gasket. So there's kind of what I've done there. I might make it a little bigger, is put a little U-notch in there. That way when the gasket lays down, it can let the fabric material from the crankshaft seals touch each other. Okay, that one looks pretty good. Now we're going to go ahead and do this one. The pins on the engine stand kind of help hold the gasket in place. Sorry you can't see what I'm doing, but you'd probably say you're going to cut your finger just using the scissors. Okay, did the same thing to that one. Is it necessary or not? I don't know. Does it make me feel better? Yes, it does. So, there you go. That just gives the material that's a little proud kind of a place to go, and hopefully they touch together, and the same material will be touching the crankshaft all the way around. So, I mean, they're gonna leak there in a little while anyway, but let's just do what we can. All right, so it looks like the gasket fits good. We've got the pan ready. Got all the fasteners ready. I'll grab the gasket maker, the Right Stuff. We'll give this a light coat, and then let's put this thing together. Something you do notice is kind of right here shining in your face. There's a couple things we did before we put the pan on. In previous videos, you know, we relined the bands. I put them on the transmission and zip tied them together. That way they are down in there. I don't have to struggle to get them in and take a chance of ruining the roundness of our bands that we worked so hard to achieve. Plus I put the front pulley on. You'll notice this is what I call a repair pulley. The pulley that was on here was extremely worn. It had shim stock shoved in it and was still kind of wobbly, and the pinhole in the crankshaft was worn. So this is from Langs. This is one of those aluminum split pulleys where you put it on, tighten the bolt, and it cinches down nice and tight and true. Then it has a roll pin that goes through to take up that space where the worn pin was. I want to give you a little warning there though. That roll pin goes in hard. It just seems hard to me when you're whacking on a crankshaft. I did taper the end of it a little bit, which on try number 2 helped a lot. But I'm just saying, it's in there. It fits good and all that, but that was just a little intimidating. It seemed like we had to whack pretty hard, but it went in just fine. So I'm gonna get the pan ready and the gasket surfaces ready, and let's put this thing together. We'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. Let's, just like we did on the pan, put down a little bead. I'm going to put some on both sides. A little extra there where those parts come together. We are putting it on a little heavier than we did with the pan cover because it's a little more room for air here. Push it down over those 2 pins. Those 2 pins are actually kind of helpful in some ways, hurtful in others. And I'm going to clean out some of that out of that hole. Now let's do the same to the other side. Each side of the main seal. We're putting some. Kind of line it up. Top of the holes. And then I'm going to put the next layer right on top of here. That way when we handle the pan, we don't get our hands in it. All right, there we go. And again, squeeze out a little bit. Not a whole lot left in that tube, but we'll make her work. Okay, we have our alignment tool on the back of the transmission. Gasket's laid down, 2 beads of the right stuff. Let's set this animal on there. Nothing down inside. Oil funnels in. Just the things that you can forget. Let's grab this pan. Alright, here we go. Let's not make a mess of this, huh? Take the pan, just set her straight down and let her go. Then I got my hands in the stuff in the cover. Alright, now I'm going to take our hardware. We also don't want to forget about our pan reinforcements. Like that. Okay. Now, there's only one bolt that goes in backwards, and that is the one by the timer here. So let's do that one first. Okay. Grab some more. We'll start working those down through. We might have to work the gasket forward a little bit. Like so. Like so, and so on. Right here we have one that's threaded, here. Probably this one right here. Let's get that one started. Just be patient, wiggle things around. That one's down. Like that. And we're just going to keep going. So we have the ones where our plate is in the way. We will put a little C-clamp right here and we'll get it cinched down. So let's get one in each corner tightened down. How we doing back here? We're going to just snug up some. We're going to stand it on its nose. Just snug. And we've got one this over here that's threaded. Alright, that's enough. Now let's stand it up on our nose. It's just easier to work that way. Okay folks, we've got nuts and bolts on all of them, and just like we had before, some on each end. We'll check our alignment tool, and it goes right in. So now I want to flip it up and start the front bolts while we can still move things around a little bit. So two bolts I was concerned about. Well, number one, this one has to be an upside down. Are right here next to the crankshaft. They're threaded down in. And something else to take into consideration. Take a screwdriver here. I want to clean out the holes a little with the excess sealer, especially the one over here on the water outlet side. I'll make sure there's a good hole down through there. Because what we're doing, this motor had an outside oiler, and we're going to be putting a new one on because it's the 26-27 style, which magneto post mount is different. So we just bought a new kit from Lang's. This adapter that acts as a bolt goes on the water outlet side, that front bolt hole. We need to, sometimes you gotta wiggle it around. We didn't want all that sealer in there to plug our hole. Oop, that's a 1/2 inch. Meantime, we'll put a bolt on the other side, which I think is this one. Nope. This one. Nope, it ain't that one either. So there, we had to find a little longer one for there. I painted the wrong one. We'll touch it in with a little brush. Just run that down. Just snug it. It's almost impossible to get a socket on this one because it's the elevated height rubs the, it just comes really close to the timing cover. So, oops, run it down. This is where, when we tapped all the holes and all that good stuff, makes it worth it. Just don't want to nick up those threads there. Okay, that one's tight. We can go ahead and tighten down that side. Good and tight. All right, now what we're going to do, I think I'm going to leave the motor sit just like this and go around and just snug them all up before we do the final tightening. Even sitting down like this, our alignment tool is really good. All right, folks, we've got all the bolts in and just snugged down. And they're tight, but not like final tight. Went through and cleaned off the extra right stuff that smushed out. I like that nice clean transition. So now we'll go through final tighten. Back here, our fourth main slips right in, no problems. So it's happy, so I'm happy. So we'll go through, do a final snug up on the bolts. Cotter pins in the pan bolts. I've yet to take a Model T apart that had any in it. I have taken some apart that had lock washers somebody put in there. I'm going to be honest, with this right stuff in there, it is going to be glued together. But I am going to align the holes, and just never know. I might put cotter keys in the, like every other one or something, just basically for looks. But anyway, you do yours, I'll do mine. That's how it goes. So I'm going to tighten up these bolts here, and then we'll take a little overview of the motor, and we'll call it a day.